Hello everybody and welcome back to the Finding Speed GT3 League Season 2. We are here, of course, for round 1 of the American Classics rotation. Of course, in Season 1, we were on the UK tour where we explored the best the UK had to give in terms of motor racing circuits. This season, Season 2, we are searching around North America, seeing what sort of tracks will get thrown in on the mix. You can see here this evening we are at the beautiful Watkins Glen circuit. 4.5 kilometers of tarmac for these GT3 cars all to chew up this evening. Of course, we do have the standard 1 hour race, much like the Prelude race, of course, that was 2 weeks ago at Laguna Seca, in which we saw lots of action, and it gave us a chance to start getting a bit of a bite on where the drivers will end up throughout the season. So if we do go to a couple of the live pictures that we have available to us this evening, we'll pick up a TV cam here on EJ Nixon, and you can see just next to their positions on the left hand side of your screen, they've got a little coloured strip, and that is in fact their class. So up at the top of the screen, hopefully in a few seconds time, there we go, you can see we have the Pro and the Am category now. The Pro category, the ones in with the slight blue stripe, and the Am category with the slightly bronze stripe, almost orange, and that just gives us a bit of a differentiation between the drivers and their relative experience in the cars and their capabilities behind the wheel. And of course, going off the Prelude race, that gave us a great look into where they would end up. So thankfully, due to a lot of the drivers attending and Russell's hard work behind the scenes, we do have a lot of the drivers placed into their appropriate classes. So we're just closing up on the end of this 2 hour, 10-minute practice session. And we do have a quali session on the way. And I'm just hearing that for some reason the thumbnail on YouTube itself is the wrong thumbnail, and that does confuse me. I'm hoping it still all looks good on your end. Please do let me know if you had that issue. As far as I'm aware, I don't have an explanation for that one. I'm sorry, but it should have uploaded to the pre-arranged event on YouTube. Who else have we got currently out on circuit? We have Chris Tapio here for RPM Racing, one of the pro drivers out on circuit. That is a very far away camera angle. We'll pick up a slightly closer one if we can. I think maybe this is going to have to be the best we can do all night. Maybe that one is slightly closer. Of course, we do want to get a nice little insight into what the cars are doing out on circuit. You can see that Lamborghini changing down the gears up through the long right-hander, and then puts his foot flat to the floor, chasing down that lap time. Who else have we got? We've got Juan Manuel Calleja for Nitro Racing Team in his BMW. Up through turns 2, 3 and 4 he goes on towards that back straight, one of the fastest sections of the circuit, and decides with the checkered flag coming out he's no longer going to continue. And same with Richard Jones, and they don't really end up with much of a choice, because there you go, only 15 seconds after the checkered flag came out, we get put straight into this 20-minute qualifying session. Let's have a look at the pit lane, and you can see just how busy pit exit is. All of the drivers scrambling out of the pit lane, just trying to get that crucial track position to see what they can do in regard to their starting position for the race. Look at that, 3 wide in the pit lane. If they're 3 wide in the pit lane, what are they going to be throughout the race? Let's see who we've got out on circuit. We have Scott Rister tearing down the back straight in his Empire Racing Mercedes, thundering through the bus stop we go for the first time. I think he's actually the lead car out of all the cars that have currently managed to work their way out on circuit. It would be nice if we could end up with some slightly closer camera angles. At some parts of the circuit, one camera pack works. At other parts in the circuit, the other one does. So I am sorry if we are slightly further away than expected. We'll try and get that fixed for the next round. I think a lot of it is just the circuit, with Watkins Glen maybe not being the most acclimatised circuit to spectating. It does struggle to do much in the way of cameras, and that is even further away. We don't want that. What I'll do is I'll just leave it on TV1, and I'm sure we'll get some nice onboard shots as the cars go round. got Timothy Bry for Team Upstate. Currently out circulating under the camera. They go down the back straight. The Scotsman really starting to open the taps on that BMW, chasing down a Lamborghini in front of him. I'll try and figure out who that is. Is it Simon Chester? It is. The German privateer entry. Through the long right-hander we go, looking for every little bit of circuit available to us. A slight little flicker there, not 100% sure what that's all about. We will go back to Scott Rister, of course. He's just going on to the first flying lap of anybody. Turns 2, 3 and 4 are waiting flat out through this section. I'm sure it'll be very, very busy throughout the race. On the back straight we go once again. And so far, this qualifying session is shaping up to be one of the closest we've seen, because it's a very, very similar gap between all the cars. So everybody left the pit lane in quite a nice little order. So they will all be picking up little wisps of draft assistance, and of course that will only bring qualifying closer. A few of the drivers posting times, albeit not competitive ones at the moment. It is Alex Wright for Team The Old Gal, right the way up at the top at the moment with a 158.255. Annoyingly, that is undoubtedly going to be beaten. I think Chris Tapio in the background there had a bit of a moment, ended up finding himself in the wall, evidently pushing his car to the limits. Let's have a quick look just to see what happened. Through the long right-hander we go, and the rear end of the car going, and then snaps the other way and just gets collected by into the car, gets out of the way as quickly as he can, but he just managed to grab that Armco barrier where the tyre wall ended. There is Benjamin Warburton, another one of the RPM entries, this time in his Ferrari. There is Alex Wright, who was originally sat on a provisional pole position. 6/10 beaten to the mark though. Aris Papadopoulos, the Canadian driver, the 222 for Team Upstate, has managed to put his Ferrari right the way up to the top end of the order, and now we're seeing the times pour in. Scott Rister, he was very slightly on provisional pole position with a 146.736, but then Ted Bradbury crossed the line to one-up him with a 146.51. Incredibly quick time from himself, of course, making the most of that draft assistance. Drew Becker sneaks in there in provisional P3. So a good little lap from him. What I'll do on the left-hand side of your screen, I will bring up the best lap so you can really see the spread of cars. Mark Fletcher goes to the top of the times. So great stuff from himself. 146.478, only narrowly manages to get himself to the top. At the moment, Patrick Gannon for Team Upstate doing very well, mixing it in with the pro drivers. A 147.184, almost 2/10 off Scott Kimbrough in front, and not major time differences between himself and Tom Dadswell behind. Pete Plasto following suit as well. And of course, while we are just passing the 5-minute mark of this practice session here at Watkins Glen. Watkins Glen is one of those tracks that is steep in history and in motorsport. Globally, it is recognised for its NASCAR Cup, NASCAR Xfinity events throughout the year. Of course, it holds a round of IMSA. It used to hold Formula One, the American round of Formula One between 1961 and 1980, and it's had occasional visits from IndyCar as well. So this circuit is definitely no stranger to close racing, and I'm sure it will be nothing less here this evening. Of course, with the Pro and Am classes provisionally being put on some of these drivers, it will be we may end up with, of course, some battles for overall position, battles for between teammates, and of course battles in class. We may end up with some interclass battles as well. We can sort it out so you can see the drivers in relative to their class position as well. So we'll have a little look at that throughout the race. Here is Mark Fletcher crossing the line again. Last time through 46.478. Does he improve upon his time? No, he doesn't. Slightly slower that time through. Just 2/10 slower. However, here is Nick McLaughlin for Virtual Racing Compound. Over the line he goes and does not improve upon his fastest lap. Alex Creighton now into the side of one of the drivers, one of the Lamborghinis. I think that's Pete Plasto narrowly avoiding a little incident there, and that was incredibly close. Alex Crater left stricken on the side of the road. Once again, just a very slight issue with the overlay, and we'll get that fixed. But hopefully, compared to the Prelude race, where of course the drivers got used to racing each other, I got used to the slight little mishaps that of course are part and parcel of the technology that we're using. And for the most part, like I say, we are pretty much there. There's just a few little bits, and once again, it is the nationalities that have decided to swap back to what they previously were. So I am sorry if your nationality is incorrect. It isn't my intention. Stijn van Nijlen in the number 10 BMW there for Ignium Motorsport, currently sat in provisional P6, so 146.984. You can see a lot of the drivers really struggling to piece together their lap times. Ted Bradbury and Scott Rister not managing to improve upon their times. Apart from Tom Dadswell goes and proves me wrong straight away, does improve upon his time, 146.652. Doesn't quite get within reach of Ted Bradbury in provisional second place. You can see a lot of drivers on the left hand side of your screen all on out laps, a few of them on pit exit, so a lot of the drivers just really starting to think about what they're going to do. They've got a quick banker lap in, let the track empty out, let it get slightly quieter and then go back out. However, I fear it's only going to get busier and busier and busier, because that's lots of blue on the timing tower, so that means lots of drivers heading out onto circuit. Papadopoulos right the way down in provisional P20, third in class at the moment. Brad Crouch, somebody that we haven't seen much of this evening, the privateer entry in the Ferrari, currently sat down in provisional P3, fifth in class. On the back straight we go, and I don't know whether it's just the noise of that Ferrari, but it sounds like he's on maybe a fairly slow outlap, just getting the car up to temperature. However, he just goes flying through the bus stop. It really does look quite narrow from that camera angle, but I've seen onboards, and you do have to really get the car prepared on the way up to the bus stop. Just having a quick look over to make sure all of the nationalities are correct, and indeed they are not. I'm sorry about that. I'll just get that changed for you now. And I'm hoping if I do that, a lot of the nationalities will change, and hopefully this time to the correct ones. Dominic Linden, I should say, for Centurion Racing Team. He hasn't set a lap so far this session. Currently, of course, he won't show up on the left-hand side of your screen with him not setting that time. Just a couple of little things that I have once again noticed, so I am sorry, ladies and gentlemen. So here is Dominic Linden. He isn't on an out lap, I don't believe. Crosses the line now. Does he get a time up on the board? I don't think he does. Nicholas Matthews currently down in 36th place in his Lunatic Racing number 155 Lamborghini. I'm sorry, I've just received a couple of messages, and I'm just trying to discover what to do about that. There is Simon Chester. Once again, we've seen him fairly early on in the session. He's still out and circulating. Still Mark Fletcher up at the top of affairs. He has set another fastest lap. He has improved upon his provisional pole position time of 146.387. So he is really starting to push forward now. So the American back out on an out lap. Of course, he won the Prelude race at Laguna Seca. Scott Kimbrough, where is he? He's right the way down in 5th. He finished 2nd 2 weeks ago, and Ted Bradbury, he finished 3rd, and he's right back up there for Delta Sport U4K. And well, he was in 2nd place. He's now in 3rd because Scott Rister does improve upon his time quite substantially as well. A 146.456 posted, just within a 10th of a second of Mark Fletcher. So he's really starting to push forward. Virtual Racing Compound in the chat. Hello, I'm assuming you are Matthew Forrest. So we now have gone past, of course, the halfway point in this session. So the time really starting to tear away. Steve Mello for Vulcan Sim Racing Academy sat there using all the circuit. I thought the car was going to pitch sideways there on entry, but he does get the car set up for the corner. One of the pro drivers out on circuit. 13th overall. Well, 14th overall now, 13th in class, because Nick McLaughlin does improve upon his time at 146.988, only 4 thousandths off Stein Van Nylen in front. That puts him right the way up into provisional P9. Keep an eye on Steve Mello, because he's really pushing forward now. Who else do we have out on circuit that is looking rather competitive? Bill Picek, pardon me. He is really starting to improve upon his time, and you can see just how close he is to the cars around him. John Dinkle for Ignium Motorsport, literally 1,000th behind him, so incredibly close between himself and John Dinkle. And it says David Bush isn't really that far away either, posting a 1 minute 47.746. Picek posting a 7.61, so incredibly close. The further down the order we go, and lots of drivers. You can see some of them are on out laps, some of them are in the pits, some of them are on pit exit, heading on to an out lap. So for the moment, it really is a mixed bag. Some of the drivers happy just to keep out and circulating, some of them getting that banker lap in, going out to see whether they can improve, and then just waiting for the track maybe to be less populated and go out and give it another go. That McLaren really does sound amazing in the hands of EJ Nixon. Probably not as good as that Lamborghini, I must say. Just slightly further up the road. That is Drew Becker for Lunatic Racing, and he is incredibly quick in that. I think possibly too quick into this right-hander. Maybe he's getting out of the way. He had a Ferrari almost follow him there. Back up to EJ Nixon we go. In towards the long left-hander. We've got 2 cars stranded on the side of the road. I think one of them was possibly Tom Dadswell in his... Oh, okay, that was an incredibly odd incident. So Tom Dadswell goes flying up the inside, and yeah, the BMW in some sort of avoidance, I think just trying to stay out of the way, ends up clipping the grass and inadvertently spinning, while Tom Dadswell finds himself and his Audi facing the wrong way in the Armco. He is back out and circulating now. And he is behind the wheel, really starting to drag every ounce of performance out of that Audi. And of course, with the Prelude race 2 weeks ago, we got a little insight, like I mentioned. If you were there and you were watching for that one, let me know what you thought, and let me know what your predictions are for this evening, of course, because it will have given you an idea of who to look out for. So I'm sure we will end up with a similar story this evening. But then again, as proven last season, we can end up with some, not necessarily odd results, but something can happen, maybe an early on incident, or strategy ends up playing a part, and it can really start to change the complexion of the race late on. So do let me know what your predictions are for this evening's race. Of course, it is a 1 hour race. There is a mandatory pit stop to be made, so please do bear that in mind as well. Back up to Mark Fletcher. Not the quickest lap the last time through, however, I think that was just getting himself prepared for the lap on the way. Really starting to get behind the reins of that Audi. Under the camera we go, on to the back straight. You can hear the car revving as high as it can go, bringing it right the way up to the top of the rev range on the back straight. Now hard on the brakes, maybe down just the one gear. Use all the curb on the right, all the curb on the left, and then the same in reverse, the left and the right through the exit of the bus stop, and then it's very much a balancing act around here. Carry as much momentum through here as you dare without scrubbing the tyres. Carry all the speed you can in towards this left-hander, hard on the brakes, down through a couple of gears we go. And then back on to this little straight. We will bring the dashboard up so it gives you a bit of a hint as to what sort of speed he is carrying through these sections of the circuit. The BMW getting out of the way, great sportsmanship driving as is expected. Fletcher really starting to shift forward now. Everybody just making sure they can get out of the way. I think that was Dadswell, or oh sorry, who was that parked on the side of the road, deciding that they won't play any further part in this session. I'll have a quick look through. But Mark Fletcher really starting to drag every ounce of performance out of this car. I'll have a little look over to the sector times just to see how he's doing. This time through, he's not really going as quick as I'd expect, to be honest. The driver that is looking to improve. We'll just stick with Mark Fletcher until he crosses the line, just to see what he can do. 46.387 to beat. Doesn't even set a personal best in any of the sectors. 47.1, massively off his fastest time. One of the drivers expected to improve, Alex Crater, really starting, and he does actually. 46.935, setting personal bests in his respective sectors. There is Scott Kimbrough, last time through, setting personal best sector 4 and 5, which does relate to his position now up in provisional, what was P4, now P5. Tom Dadswell really put the hammer down in that one for Altitude Esports. So at the moment, it is an Altitude Esports P1, P2, so a front row lockout for Altitude, with Mark Fletcher still on provisional pole. Tom Dadswell will be alongside. Here is EJ Nixon out on circuit. Alex Crater, once again, he is slowly starting to improve upon his time. So even after last time through, him setting personal best, he's gone through and set even more. Chris Tapio doing much the same in his RPM Lamborghini. So we'll keep an eye on Chris to see where he can place his car. Stephen Brumfield slightly further up. He was going quicker, and I think he does beat his fastest lap that time through. Just doesn't quite promote himself up high enough. Chris Tapio through the penultimate section of the circuit, now through the final corner, using the camber of the course to pitch the car in, and then hard on the power up through the gearbox. And that V10 Lamborghini screaming towards the line, crosses the line now. A 1 minute 47.045 to beat, and he does take a tenth out of his fastest time, and you can just see that's put him from what was, I think, P13 right the way up into provisional P8. 146.930 from himself. Great stuff for Chris and RPM Racing. Alex Crater crosses the line, 146.935 last time through. I don't think he posted a time, so possibly maybe just making that lap null and void at some point throughout the circuit. Here is Pete Plasto, deciding he plays no further part in the session, and of course the checkered flag does come out now. So we do have a few drivers still out and circulating. Chris Tapio no longer one of them. Ted Bradbury, we will have a quick look, and he does get pitched into the wall, or maybe just collects the back of somebody there, and the end of the qualifying session has come to a very sudden end for a couple of those drivers. We still have John Dinkle out and circulating. Is he setting the world alight? He set a personal best sector 4, so he is going slightly quicker through the latter stages of the circuit in his Ignium Motorsport Lamborghini. Through the final corner we go. The car very slightly pitched sideways on the exit, on the entrance, sorry. So he is really pushing the limits here. 147.762 the time he set last time, and he does improve. A 147.414 posted puts him right the way up into provisional P17. P16 in class, and somebody who is somewhat out of position is Patrick Gannon for Team Upstate. Look at that, right the way up in provisional P13, the highest placed AM driver. I suspect a promotion may be in order for himself. Harris Papadopoulos on the boot section of the circuit. The extra little bit added to the Grand Prix layout of Watkins Glen. Just going through the final couple of corners now. Not really setting any personal bests at any point throughout the circuit. Steve Mello slightly further up for VSRA. On the start-finish straight we go. This is an outlap, so of course it won't be timed. Crosses the line to finish off his qualifying session, and Aris Papadopoulos does much the same. So I'm sure we will end up with a grid available to you in a few moments' time. And as far as I'm aware, touch wood, the issues that we were experiencing last week where the session didn't swap over have been fixed. However, if they haven't, I will just have to ask for your patience once again in a desperate attempt to leave and rejoin the session. But let's hope, fingers crossed, that that won't be the case. Steve Mello, the one somewhat holding up this session at this point, desperate to get every little bit of practice he can at this Watkins Glen circuit. And with the session finishing almost 3 minutes ago, it does finally decide to bring it to an end. So let's get the grid up on screen. Mark Fletcher takes pole position here at Watkins Glen for round 1 of the championship for Altitude Esports. A 1:46.387 puts him at the top. His teammate Tom Dadswell alongside Scott Rister and Ted Bradbury make up row 2. Scott Kimbrough has EJ Nixon for company on row 3. Then it's Drew Becker, Chris Tapio, Alex Crater, Stein Van Nylen, Nick McLaughlin, Stephen Brumfield, and we will go back a few more. We've got Patrick Gannon, the highest placed AM qualifier, right the way up in P13, only 8 tenths off the pole time for Team Upstate. Juan Manuel Calleja sat there for Nitro Racing Team in 14th. Steve Mello and Pete Plastow 15th and 16th. John Dinkle and David Bush on row what would be 9. Then it's David Gowrie, Jim McIntosh, Richard Jones, Benjamin Warburton, Bill Peck and Brett Crouch round out your top 24. We'll go back another few. We've got Graham Bardsley, Simon Chester, Igor Bembic, Aris Papadopoulos, Timothy Bry, Kansas Gentry. It says A Peck, I do believe it is Alex Peck. Then it's Alex Wright, Dominic Linden, Nicholas Matthews, Colin McKenzie, and it says Brown once again, but that is incorrect. It is Graham Brown. We'll go back just another few rows, and I think that will round out the grid. We've got Dan Ocaranza for Nitro Racing Team, then it's Andreas Helgrud, Todd Bosworth and Russell Barnes, starting at the back once again in the number 35 machine, right the way down on the 20th row of the grid. So let's have a look up to Mark Fletcher. So sat behind the safety car, eager to get going, and both those Altitude Esports cars did a great job of qualifying. You can see all the cars on the grid. Somebody having maybe a slight connection issue. I'm not 100% sure who that is. It could be Stein Van Nylen having a bit of an issue. Yeah, it is. You can see him jumping around there behind Alex Crater, or behind Chris Tapio, pardon me, alongside Alex Crater. And away goes the pack. Mark Fletcher leading them away from the line. Albeit his teammate more than eager to keep up with the pace car. You can see there Tom Dadswell quite happy to stick along with that Porsche. Mark Fletcher maybe just stacking everybody up. Not 100% sure what the thinking is behind that, whether he's keeping everything cool. I'm sure he'll put his foot to the floor to meet his teammate there, and the safety car is not even within camera shot anymore. It's a great little camera angle that, as everybody goes tearing over the hill. Safety car follows through. And thousands of horsepower all eager to get unleashed. Mark Fletcher still maybe not 100% happy with the pace the safety car is keeping. He's letting Tom Dadswell get right up to the front, and he's almost holding up the cars behind slightly. And of course he is the leader, so he is the driver that controls the start. So he can, in theory, do what he wishes within reason, and he is doing so. Round the long right-hander we go, and you can see a distinct lack of weaving, whether that be because in a in the sim, it might not make massive amounts of difference to tyre and brake temperature. And you see some drivers you see the brake lights just staying on for a distinct amount of time, maybe just dragging the brake around. Of course, that will get the brake up to temperature, which will then heat the rim within the tyre. So, in theory, all the heat will then just go outwards from there and heat the rest of the car up. So it could be a slight little play that Mark Fletcher is working with in that number 11 machine. We'll go right the way back to Russell Barge. You can see at the back he's got all the work to do. Did an incredible job of it last time out at the Prelude race, and I'm sure he will do the same today. Lots of traffic to work through. There is Tom Dadswell. You can tell the difference between the Altitude Esports car. Tom Dadswell, the Audi with the orange flashes, albeit on the wing mirrors, and I think on the rear wing end plates as well. And oh, sorry, Mark Fletcher, the one with the orange flashes, and Mark Fletcher with the green flashes. Actually, I think I was right the first time. Mark Fletcher with the green flashes, Tom Dadswell is with the orange flashes. There you go, pardon me, sorry about that. Through the penultimate corner we go, and for the first time this season, we are going to go racing. And does Mark Fletcher hold the pack up right the way until the line, or does he wait? You can hear the revs rise, and we go green here at Watkins Glen for round 1 of the Finding Speed GT3 League. We are, of course, here for season 2, and what a start from Mark Fletcher. He's left his teammate starstruck at this point. He's dropped right the way down into 3rd place. Tom Dadswell looking to keep that position right the way around the outside. He's almost being left out to dry by Scott Rister and Empire Racing. And they're still side by side through turns 2, 3, and possibly 4 if they make it to the top of the hill. And that's a sideways moment for Dadswell, and he does end up in the barrier. I'm trying to pick up a picture on him, and you can see there the domino effect. One car slows down, and everybody ends up getting collected. There's 1 car off, 2 cars off, 3 cars off, one of them beached up on the barriers, and it's all going wrong. That's lots of damage. Russell Barnes, you can see there, included in that one. That's lots of damage. And it's very much a car park on the back straight. And I'm sure if you could throw yellow flags, if that is something that is enabled, we would get one. But annoyingly, I don't think we have them available to us. There is Graham Brown. But back up to the front, slightly calmer up here. We have Mark Fletcher still leading the way in the number 11 machine, no longer with the assistance of his teammate. There is Scott Rister in the Mercedes. Still there in 2nd place. Patrick Gannon up into 9th place at the moment. Really starting to pile the pressure on. You can see there's a fair bit of damage on a few of the cars in the background. So let's hope that they can get safely back to the pit lane. Alex Peck up into 20th place, 11 positions gained for himself. Closest cars we've got out on circuit are Patrick Gannon and Juan Manuel Calleja behind. David Gowrie following suit, and it's very much to train from there. I want to have a little look just to see what went on at the start, and I'm sure we won't be able to pick up on all of it because we would be here for quite a while. But initially, I'm trying to figure out how it all started. I'm trying to have a quick look back to the green flag. I'll try and find who we're looking for. We'll just slow it down so we do have a bit of time. There is Tom Dadswell. I'm trying to think of where we can look for this one. I think we'll pick up the chopper cam for Tom here. Tom the Audi on the outside of Rister in the Mercedes. You can see up the top of the hill we go. Through turn 3, the car just slowly starts to get sideways and then hard into the wall, and he just bounces there. And I think a few of the cars behind spin in sympathy, trying to stay out of the way, and then that's one of the BSRA cars that gets caught up in that as well, Steve Mello. And then Tom Dadswell carries on with, of course, carrying that damage, but without too much of an issue. Back up to Patrick Gannon for Team Upstate, doing fairly well there in P10. However, he does have one of his class rivals sat with him, David Gowrie, for Centurion Racing Team in his BMW following along now. Todd Bosworth has had a bit of an incident. Apparently he went off the road, and then this is an overtake actually between Igor Bembic and Todd Bosworth, and then Todd just gets pipped into the wall by Igor, and Igor carries on without too much of an issue. What has happened to Scott Kimbrough? It's such a busy race, I'm struggling to click on the right points. So there is Todd, sorry, again. Here is Scott Kimbrough, pardon me. Empire racing sideways through the final corner. Does he keep it out the barriers? He's holding the brakes and does just about stay out of the tyre. So great stuff from himself. He can continue on without too much of an issue. Back up to the front we go though. Here is Mark Fletcher really starting to extend that lead now. 8.4 tenths. Clear of Scott Rister, who has Ted Bradbury on his case for Delta Sport U4K. There is Pete Plastow all over the tail of Stephen Brumfield. However, he does have David Bush for Lunatic Racing chomping at the bit, trying to get by. He looks to the outside through that long right hander. Not 100% sure whether that's going to be the best place to do it, but he's definitely eager to get by. Look at that now. Pete Plastow really under some intense pressure. You can see the damage aboard Stephen Brumfield's machine after, I think, collecting an early spinner there, and a little look up the inside once again from David Bush. Doesn't quite get the move done that time through though. These two are the closest cars on circuit, and I expect they will remain that way for quite some time. Just having a little look through to make sure that everybody is still out. There is the change of position. It's 3 wide on the screen. Pete Plastow, does he make any sort of contact? You heard contact in the background. He's trying to hold on to that position, but up the inside goes David Bush, and Pete now down into what is P13. Up the road, we do have this battle for P1 in the AM class, side by side in towards turn 1. David Gowrie on the inside, Patrick Gannon on the outside. And Patrick does get demoted down. There's a car backwards, and you can see there in that shot there was, what, 3 Team Upstate cars, I think. Actually, I think that's the it's Centurion Racing Team, and David Gowrie for Centurion. Now almost 3 wide there. Who's that involved as well? I'm trying to have a quick look over, but I think that's a lapped car involved. And this is the battle for the lead in the AM class, the battle for the final few spots in the top 10. And for the moment, it's David Gowrie in 9th, Stephen Brumfield in 10th, and Patrick Gannon with that Audi trying to chase down the damaged Stephen Brumfield. You can see the front of that BMW has had quite a heavy hit fairly early on. Further back, Tom Dadswell side by side now with Benjamin Warburton. Ben on the inside, a bit of a blink there for Ben, does jump back, does he get the position? Of course, Tom desperate trying to make up positions, make amends for that earlier incident, and of course we do have the strategy to play out yet with the fuel stops, so we could still see a few position changes later on with the altering strategies. And really, this is the place to be looking, because it's just car after car after car after car, a bit of a break, and then once again another pack of cars. So we'll keep an eye on this little battle as the race goes on. My PC not 100% happy with something there. Sorry about that little bit of background noise. Not 100% sure what it's not happy about. But we are still out and circulating for a lot of the drivers. A few of them, of course, destined for the pit lane after that earlier incident. But for the moment, we do still have, let's have a quick look over, 38 cars circulating. We do have Dan Ocaranza and Alex Wright in the pit lane. There is Russell Barnes up into P21. Of course, he did get mixed up in that earlier incident. However, he is still continuing on without too much of an issue. Further up the order, there is Scott Kimbrough under pressure from Jim McIntosh. I do actually believe it's James behind the wheel of that car. The lead gap has come down very slightly. It is back within 1 second. 1 second between Mark Fletcher and Scott Rister. Ted Bradbury on an absolute mission, setting a purple Sector 2 and Sector 3. Hot on the heels of Rister now, really starting to get the bit between his teeth with this one. And desperate to make up an extra position. Once again, my PC making a slight noise in the background. I'm sorry about that. Here is Pete Blastow following this train of cars led by David Gowrie, then Stephen Brumfield, Patrick Gannon, David Bush, and then we do get back to the number 31 Ferrari of Pete. Scott Rister setting his personal fastest lap of the race. You can see they're almost, or just over 2/10 quicker than our race leader, hence why that gap will have come down. You can see a train of cars driving their way towards turn 1. You can see the battle in the background, led by Ben Warburton and Richard Jones, Scott Kimbrough, James McIntosh and Alex Peck trying to chase after that little battle up the road. Further down the order, we do still have a lot of drivers running. Alex Wright, I think Dominic, yeah, we do have 2 retirements. Dominic Linden and Alex Wright are still in the pit lane. There is Aris Papadopoulos, Colin McKenzie, Dan Ocaranta, Brett Crouch, Bill Pisek, Steve Mello, Drew Becker, Timothy Bry, Todd Bosworth, John Dinkle, all slightly out of position. We'd expect them to be higher, but of course being held up or being caught up in that earlier battle and that earlier incident definitely won't have helped. Back up to this battle, however, they are getting closer and closer together on David Bush, Patrick Gannon and Pete Blastow now back piling the pressure on. And there was an incident in the background. I think that's Scott Kimbrough who was being caught up in that. Apparently he jumped straight to the pit lane. Richard Jones, Drew Becker. What has happened to Drew Becker? Hard into the tyre wall. The car spirals around. Hopefully not too much damage on that car. He does return to the pit lane. Richard Jones gets a helping hand around, and then over the wall goes Scott Kimbrough. So let's see what happened there. So the Ferrari has a bit of a moment, then loses it once again, and then Scott gets a big old hit and fired clean over the Armco barrier and back to the pit lane. Nothing much he can do there at all. Quite a spectacular incident for himself. There is Richard Jones, I'm sure with damage on his Ferrari now. That lead battle has come right way down now. Scott Rister really pushing forward. I'm sure he's starting to struggle here. Ted Bradbury hot on his case, pushing forward. Who wouldn't want to run away from that? And he's really starting to pile the pressure on the leader in the background. I really don't know where to look at this point. You can see Pete Blastow looking to the outside of Patrick Gannon. He's going to have to be very brave to outbrake himself through there around the outside, and he does get the move done. Pete Blastow up into the top 12, managed to work his way around the AM driver of Patrick Gannon. Great stuff from himself. In the further up the road we go, we've got Alex Crater has managed to get past EJ Nixon. Up 5 places is Alex, so really starting to make moves up this order. It's McLaren on McLaren. And for the moment, Alex Crater looking fairly safe there now after getting past EJ. There is Scott Rister. The top 3 have managed to negotiate the traffic of Steve Mello. And Scott now making inroads on Mark Fletcher's lead. And of course, we did see a fair few incidents last time out at the Prelude race, and tonight definitely hasn't disappointed. There is Graham Brown, 1 second away from Richard Jones, but of course we saw that incident with Richard a few laps ago, so maybe carrying damage. That battle could get closer together. I've heard another little incident. I think that might have been Igor Bembik. A bit of an incident there in his Benetton liveried machine. Pitches it sideways and then just taps the wall. I do believe it is Benetton, please do correct me if I am wrong. But backwards into the wall and does get back going once again. So Igor Bembic with a bit of an issue there. Mark Fletcher now getting closer. Well, Scott Rister getting closer and closer to Mark Fletcher, looking back from his Audi. And you can just see how close that Mercedes is. Really starting to reel in the lead gap. But of course, Scott Rister bringing Ted Bradbury with him for Delta U4K, and of course Ted plays his cards right. He can just sit behind the cars in front and just save fuel and maybe just pick up little pointers here and there, but of course he will be lapping. He's got the opportunity to lap quicker and make those moves, but if he just bides his time, he can sit there, save that fuel, and when he does come round to the pit window, he can go in at the same time as the leaders, but maybe have to take a few litres less. So he could end up jumping the pair of them in the pit lane, and this lead battle definitely isn't going away. The top three cars within a second now. So after the dramatics of lap 1, you see the lead trio still this close is incredible, and all setting very similar times. Mark Fletcher a 47.4, Scott Rister a 47.5, Ted Bradbury a 47.4, and Alex Crater and EJ Nixon setting very similar lap times as well. Juan Manuel Calleja currently in 8th place, setting one of the fastest lap times around him, so really starting to push on now is Juan. David Bush chasing down Stephen Brumfield for Centurion Racing. Does have that draft assistance, almost chopping the nose off of David Bush there was Stephen. Onto the back straight we go, getting closer and closer and closer. Around the outside, we saw it happen a few laps ago between Pete Blasto and who was it at the time? Patrick Gannon. Doesn't quite swing the way of David Bush this time through. Of course, David Gowrie for Centurion Sim Racing, the lead BMW in this battle. Stephen Brumfield playing rear gunner for his teammate, maybe just trying to fend off the attentions of David Bush. Let Pete Blasto and Patrick Gannon get close enough, but I think I'm going to eat my words here, because look at that, David Bush up the inside for Lunatic Racing and up into P10. So great stuff from himself. And that Lamborghini now setting his sights in on David Gowrie. So that previous position will have been an overall and an in-class position gain. David Gowrie, the lead AM driver at the moment, right the way up in P9. Great stuff from himself. The lead battle still getting closer. The top three now separated by 3/4 of a second. So as we cross the line to go on to lap 10 this time through, Mark Fletcher still in the lead, Scott Rister following along, and Ted Bradbury has got the best seats in the house for this. So I'm sure he's more than happy just to sit behind. You can see just how much of the circuit you can use there, the VSRA car in the background. And with that being a lapped car, of course, desperate to make up positions is Steve Mello, and you can just tell by the body language of the car he is hoping to do so. 16 minutes of the race remaining. Look at this, Ted Bradbury now looking to the inside of Scott Rister. He has got the position, and even before the braking zone, I think Scott Rister just maybe gave up that position, succumbed to the advances of Ted Bradbury and let him get P2, possibly at this point to go, right, well, I've had my shot, let's see what Ted can do and bring me with him. So if Ted is quick enough, he will be able to catch up with Mark Fletcher, and of course if he squeezes his way through a gap, chances are Scott Rister will do the same. Easier said than done. Further back, Patrick Gannon and Pete Blasto still battling away. Patrick on the inside does get Pete back this time through, but now look, they have made that trio into a 5-car train led by David Bush, David Gowrie, Stephen Brumfield, Patrick Gannon, and then Pete Blasto at the back. Stephen Brumfield doing a great job to manage that damage and just continue on without too much of an issue. On the back straight we are, and then through the long right-hander, down the hill, then back through the compression, up the hill into what is, in my opinion, one of the hardest corners on the circuit, because it's a blind apex. And of course you are at the brow of a hill, so the grip just falls away, and then you've got that grass on the exit which can catch you out incredibly easily. Patrick Gannon now left without much to do at this point. Ted Bradbury setting the fastest lap of the race at 46.734. That would have stood him in very good stead for qualifying, let alone the race. And look how close he is to the leader. He's managed to leave Scott Rister, and he's just 1 second clear now. And he's only getting closer and closer and closer to Mark Fletcher in the lead. Benjamin Warburton jumping in and out of the timing tower, maybe with a slight connection issue here this evening. But at the moment, Ted Bradbury, he's looking hot on for the lead and to take Mark Fletcher's crown. Of course, he won last time out on the pre-season race at Laguna Seca, and he was looking to do the same here this evening, hopefully with his teammate following him along. But Tom Dadswell, of course, with that earlier incident, he's got a hell of a lot of work to do to get back up to his respective position. And look at this now, Ted Bradbury really starting to pile the pressure on, looking this way and that, and I'm sure we will see a change of position in the next couple of corners. Number 53 machine looking to make inroads, and of course with this slight bit of battling that's going on, it's allowing Scott Rister to get back within touching distance. Here is Stijn van Nijlen on the inside trying to fend off Chris Tapio in the number 12 RPM Lamborghini. And for the moment he is successful in doing so, but this lead battle, we really can't look away from it, as Ted Bradbury is still there trying to get the lead away from his fellow Audi driver. Scott Rister setting a 46.984, not his fastest lap of the race, only what 200ths off of that, but that is still an incredibly quick lap time from himself. Mark Fletcher, well, all he would want to do is to sit there and focus on going forward. It's going to be a very difficult job. Speaking of Tom Dadswell just a few moments ago, the Altitude Esports driver set a personal best lap time last time through, a 1 minute 47.83. Set a personal best sector 1, an overall best sector 2 on this lap. So he's really starting to push forward and try to get past a few of the cars in front. We do have a car in the pit lane, that's Simon Chester, privateer entry. Another personal fastest lap of the race from Dadswell, 47.492. He's bringing Nick McLaughlin with him in the VRC Ferrari. But back up to the front though, I think it's slowly starting to stabilise here. 3/10 the gap between Fletcher and Bradbury. Rister another, a second adrift from the pair of them. Mark Fletcher with a bit of a blink in and out then. Let's hope that mitigates itself fairly shortly, because I can imagine that would be rather distracting for Bradbury there. 21 minutes of the see have now gone, so we're a third of the way through already. So at this point, of course, while you would want to think about strategy, see where you are in regards to your fuel target and see what you can do about altering that maybe to fit your race, Mark Fletcher, he is going to be flat to the floor with this, hounded by Bradbury at the moment. EJ Nixon setting his personal fastest lap of the race, a 47.438, so he's only improving from where he is. Screaming onto the back straight, you can see there a raft of green. That's Butch, Gary, Brumfield and Warburton adding to the personal fastest lap. So the track, you can see it's evolving. Visually you can see it's getting more rubbered in, so it's only going to get more grip. I say that as Ted Bradbury, you can see the alternating lines through there. Fletcher takes the slightly tighter line in, lets the car wash wide. Bradbury takes a really wide line in and then grabs a later apex. That's a car off on the side of the road. I think that is Todd Bosworth by the look of that Ferrari. Let's have a look, see what happens. So into the long right-hander we go. Very similar incident to Chris Tapio, only this time it didn't swing back the other way, and in a desperate attempt to get out of the way, grabs first gear and pulls himself well onto the grass. Great stuff from Bosworth. He knew full well the leaders were coming and thought, I don't want to get in the way of that. Through the car at the expense of some damage on his car, he does get out of the way and let that lead battle still continue on. Who was that nearly got in the way there? I think that was, it wasn't Bosworth. I'm trying to figure out who that was. I think that could be a car that is maybe 2 laps down of Alex Wright. It is for the old gal, maybe slightly holding up the leader of Mark Fletcher there, within a quarter of a second is Ted Bradbury, tucked underneath the rear wing, following along, and of course he will be still saving fuel while he is piling pressure on Mark Fletcher, which could force Mark into a mistake and then gift Bradbury the lead. Of course, he is still saving fuel, so it's a win-win situation at the moment for Bradbury. And he is playing it perfectly at this point. Just waiting to see what happens. And of course, Scott Rister is still there, willing to get in on the action. There is Ted Bradbury. I just want to ride on board to see what he's doing down this back straight. Just following the leader through, I think, is going to be the way to go. Slight bit of traffic maybe playing a part once again. Through the long right-hander we go. And the BMW of Timothy Bright getting well and truly out of the way, making sure that he doesn't hinder the leaders at all. Russell Barnes in the pit lane, so whether that be because he is now within range of the or within fueling range of the end of the race, maybe pitting as early as possible, getting in for the long run and seeing what he can do with a car that will only get quicker. And for the moment, this lead battle really starting to come down. Further back, we've got Alex Crater under pressure from EJ Nixon. We saw Alex getting closer and closer and closer to the leaders. I think he was within 4 seconds, and all of a sudden, he has started to drop away. Now 8 seconds away from the leaders. EJ Nixon right back on his case. 3/10 separating himself and Crater. Crater with a bit of a blink there, maybe slightly distracting for Nixon. This is for 4th place respectively, of course 4th place in the Pro class as well. We'll have a little look further down the order to see what other action we've got going on. Here is Graham Bardsley and Nicholas Matthews battling away for 22nd overall, so it's Pro driver on Am driver. Bardsley using all of the circuit, looking for the cutback now, takes the wide line in, tries to shorten the exit. Does get back going, but the Lamborghini does seem to have a little bit more, maybe leaving the corner and then going into it. But Bardsley has got the kick on the straight. You can see that BMW now, the grunt kicks in, and he really starts to open that battle up. On the inside is Bardsley, the number 77 machine, and that position is made for himself. And Nicholas Matthews sat there without much to do in the way of defence. Got Bill Pisek here and Steve Mello battling away once again, a very similar part of the circuit. BMW on the outside, Ferrari on the inside, and of course they haven't really got much traffic to worry about now as the leaders have managed to get past them. Look at that big look up the inside from Bill Pisek, and has he got that position made? Grabs the apex. Of course he won't be able to carry the same momentum around the outside, but we know what the BMW is like in the straight. It is definitely a bit of a dragster. But somehow it looks like Mello might keep the position just about. Has a little look around the outside. Does Bosworth? So maybe Pisek, pardon me, to try and keep that position. And speaking of Bosworth, whereabouts is he? He's still quite the way back, so he won't really be able to do much about that. Getting out of the way of some traffic working its way through. I think that was Pete Plastow, it was indeed. The lead gap still 3:10, so nothing much changing up at the front. Here is David Gowrie and Stephen Brumfield, the two Centurion Racing Team teammates. And Brumfield into the pit lane this time. So evidently going in to get that car repaired. Of course he will get the fuel that he can get to the end, or that he will use to get to the end of the race as well. Here is Bradbury now in the lead, and I've got to say I didn't notice that. Whether that just happened, I don't know. Let's have another quick look back to see what happened. This was on the last lap. Bradbury throws him the dummy and gets the car to the inside of the circuit. So let's have a look down the outside. Bradbury looks to the outside, then throws the car to the inside, hard on the brakes, and up through into the lead goes the number 53 machine, Mark Fletcher. Once again, not really left with much to do there. And it's Bradbury in the lead. Of course, he will have saved all that fuel, so he can afford to use it, and he's using it wisely at the moment. Half a second clear of Mark Fletcher, leaving him in the hands of Scott Rister. So Scott now sat there deciding what he wants to do about the Prelude race winner. EJ Nixon and Alex Crater still battling away. For the moment, I think it's going to calm down, as they do need to, of course, think about what they're going to do in the long run, closing up on the halfway point of this race. So strategy will only play more of a part from here on out. Further down the order, Igor Bembic and Nicholas Matthews changing position. Just caught that as it happened. Igor up into 23rd place. Nicholas down into 24th, 6th place in class now in the 155 Lamborghini. Stein van Nijlen setting a personal fastest lap of the race. And the lead battle is only getting closer. Look how close Mark Fletcher is now, looking to get that position back. He looks to the outside. Bradbury goes defensive to the inside. And Mark Fletcher, wise to that, and decides, yeah, maybe not this time. Knowing full well there is still half the race to go. He can just bide his time and afford to maybe be slightly conservative at this point. And then think about what he's going to do with him towards the latter stages of the race. Just realised once again that a few of the names don't quite match up with the nationalities. I'm not 100% sure why it has decided to do that again, so I am sorry if that has affected you. And I can't 100% figure out why, so I am sorry. Once again, I think I will just turn off nationalities for the moment so it doesn't affect anybody any further. Ted Bradbury still leading the way from Mark Fletcher. EJ Nixon still chasing down Alex Crater, just past the halfway point in this race now. If you look up at the top of the screen, we will bring up the leader. That definitely isn't what we wanted to see without no background, so we'll leave that for the moment. I'll try and get that fixed throughout. But we are going to be entering the pit window with more and more drivers thinking about it. You can see EJ Nixon looking to the outside of Crater now. EJ, a little look, decides maybe not that time through, but he left it a bit too late to duck out of that move, and look at the time that has cost him. 3/4 of a second back now is EJ from Crater, so that has really cost him a fair bit of time. And as we now have passed the halfway point in the race, I am just going to run for a quick comfort break, get myself a drink, and in what, 3-4 minutes time we will be back with all the action. So you're watching round 1 of the Finding Speed GT3 League Season 2 here at Watkins Glen on the American Classics rotation of the calendar. So I will be back in about 3 minutes time. Don't go away. So, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to round one of the Finding Speed GT3 League Season 2. We are, of course, here for the American Classics rotation. And now we do have a lot of the drivers in the pit lane, including our leader, Ted Bradbury, followed by Mark Fletcher, who does get back out into the lead, followed by Scott Rister. And look how far back Ted Bradbury has dropped. So a nightmare for himself. EJ Nixon leaves the pit lane there. He's actually got past Alex Crater and really started to open the gap. Both of them changing position in the pit lane clearly. Tom Dadswell for Altitude Esports right the way back up into P6. So we'll see how far he can get up the order. There is Chris Tapio. Lord in P7. You'll notice I have fixed the nationalities. When I went for the break, I just set about getting them fixed, so they should all match up. If you notice something that isn't correct, please do let me know, but as far as I'm aware, we should be spot on. Now they're a big moment for, who's that? That's James McIntosh, a Scot. The car sliding sideways over the exit curb at turn 1, almost firing in the direction of Russell Barnes, Mr. Finding Speed. Of course, he is up into P15 after starting in 40th. He has made a net gain of 21 places, so great stuff from Russell. Of course, you will commonly see him as Finding Speed. Maybe you've been on his website. If you haven't, please do make sure you check out his website, findingspeed.com. You can see everything you need, including track guides, previous content, and of course, if you feel like spending a little bit of money and maybe upgrading your sim kit, he does have links to Demon Tweeks, Overclockers UK and Fanatec. So please make sure you go on to findingspeed.com, have a look around and use the various links if required. There is Patrick Gannon, pretty much inadvertently has been dragged into this battle now. Well, he sat there in P14. All of the drivers have made at least one pit stop now, so we are going to be running to the end. The lead gap 1.2 seconds. Scott Rister, like I say, 1.2 seconds away from Mark Fletcher, 2 seconds ahead of Ted Bradbury. Going to have another look back to this battle because it is only getting closer. Russell Barnes looking at picking off another position, picking off the second place AM driver of Patrick Gannon. And you can see there, while he is making inroads on that, on the American in the 666 Audi, he is bringing with him the RPM Racing entry of Jim McIntosh, who has just traded places with Juan Manuel Calleja for Nitro Racing Team. He does squeeze his way through in towards turn 1, promotes himself up into P16. Look how close Russell Barnes is now to the tail end of Patrick Gannon. Under the camera we go on towards the back straight, and the number 35 machine getting closer and closer and closer to the Audi of Patrick Gannon. Through the bus stop we go once again, and look at Juan Manuel Calleja. He's really started to reel Russell Barnes in there on the back straight with that draft assistance, and the BMW of course being incredibly quick on the straights. He's managed to reel Finding Speed in. However, you can see where the Ferrari almost comes into its own now in the sections of the circuit where handling plays a part. The Ferrari is very much at home, the same as the Audi of Patrick Gannon. And as the leaders cross the line once again to go on to lap 23, 20 minutes of the race remaining. So 2/3 of the race gone, 1/3 of the race remaining. You can see there Russell does get the better line through the corner. It looked like Gannon maybe washed wide at the midpoint, and Russell is definitely not going to take prisoners here all the way around the outside. He will carry the superior momentum, and if he's got his nose in front, which I do believe he does get the position made for the penultimate corner, carries the superior momentum, and of course with that superior momentum brings a lot of time with it. So now 8/10 clear of Patrick Gannon, where Juan Manuel Calleja has got stuck behind him at this point. So it does now mean Russell can run into the distance and hopefully build up as much of a gap as possible, and Juan Manuel Calleja squeezes his way through as well. So Gannon only going backwards from here, almost rejoined into the side of the number 5 BMW. They're still just about side by side. There you go. Calleja does get free and clear. Jim McIntosh for RPM Racing. On the back straight, tucked underneath the rear wing of Gannon. In towards the bus stop. Gannon's actually looking at getting possibly back past Kalea while he's defending from McIntosh. And does so, he tries, but can't quite get the plan executed as he would like. These three cars are in fact the closest on the circuit at the moment, I believe. Further back, Scott Kimbrough for Empire Racing, trying to get past Graham Bardsley in the Team Upstate BMW. Has a little look, but decides maybe this time, maybe not. Through Sector 1 we go, and it's still close between the pair of them. Through turns 2, 3 and 4. And Scott Kimbrough, he's only getting closer. Two cars basically turned into one at that point. Down the straight, Scott making the most of the draft assistance. Which way does Bardsley go? Does he go defensive? No, he doesn't. In towards the bus stop. A big look from Kimbrough, and there you go. Position made up into P22. And that is a position within class as well. So the change for 18th in class. Benjamin Warburton dropping down the order. You can see him jumping in and out still, but he's lost places to Gannon and McIntosh. Here is Stein van Nylen, struggling for a bit of free air because he's got the RPM Racing Lamborghini of Chris Tapio in front, and hot on his heels is David Bush for Lunatic Racing, also in a Lamborghini. So it's Lamborghini versus BMW versus Lamborghini. In towards Sector 3 we go. And it's still Stein van Nylen stuck in the middle of this battle for Ignium Motorsport, struggling to shake off the attentions of Bush behind. And this really is what we'd expect from this sort of racing. Through Sector 3 in towards Sector 4 now. And it's still Stein van Nylen looking to get away from this battle. We'll have a little look back at that in a few moments' time. Here is Gannon. Still under pressure from McIntosh, but not quite the same intensity as prior. Mark Fletcher up at the front, 1.3 seconds clear of Scott Rister, and it's been an absolute nightmare for Bradbury. Really not happy with something at this point. He's had a bit of a moment by the looks of that. The last time through, 155 point, what is that, 639. So I think Bradbury maybe with a slight issue. He did go off the road. Let's have another look back to see what happened. Does he touch the grass and over-rotate the rear? No, sets the car up nicely. Goes in a little hot. Does he catch the barrier? Does he ever? Sideways into the barrier. The back of the car in first, then the front of the car bouncing its way around, following suit, which leaves him 10 seconds away, almost 11 seconds away from Rister, with EJ Nixon just there. So it's gone from race lead to struggling to stay on the podium here for Bradbury. An absolute nightmare for himself. He was trying to follow up a good result in the Prelude race. Of course, no points available for that one, so he did all the right things, I think, at all the wrong points. However, do not rule him out of this race just as yet. He's displayed some great pace here this evening. Here is David Bush now, looking to get back past Stein van Nylen. He's got the inside, and I think that does mean position gained. What can Stein do around the outside, however? Carry the momentum? No, he cannot. And he is down into 9th place. David Bush up into 8th and sets his sights on Chris Tapio just up the road in his fellow Lamborghini. And I've got to say, the ebb and flow of these battles really is intriguing, because we've now got Jim McIntosh once again back on the tail of Gannon, but then as soon as we look at it, the gap opens up once again, and then if we look away, it will close up. It's all a balancing act really in these GTs. Of course, with their balance of performance being so close, it does create a great recipe for some incredibly close racing, as proven here this evening. Tom Dadswell in the pit lane now, evidently not able to make it on fuel. So he does pull into the pit lane in his Altitude Esports Audi. Quick splash and dash, and then I'm sure he'll see what he can do about staying in the top 10. There is Chris Tapio in his Lamborghini, now with David Bush behind, and of course David will be making the most of the draft assistance. Lamborghinis, of course, exactly the same shape, so I'm sure through the air it will make quite a difference for Bush and Lunatic Racing. For the moment, Chris Tapio is somewhat safe. He does go defensive for a little while, just trying to decide what he's going to do about the car behind, but a bit of traffic plays a part there, and you can see David Bush has a big look up the inside. We'll look forward from David now in 5th gear, 220 k's in towards this left-hander. Chasing down Tapio, a bit more traffic possibly going to play a part in this one. I think that is Steve Mello and Kansas Gentry. Both the cars running out wide. We get a great look at the rear diffuser from David Bush. Tucked underneath the rear wing, almost tucked underneath the car. There was Bush. And you've got to be so careful in these low-nosed Lamborghinis, because if you do get underneath that rear bumper of the car in front, you won't really crash into it and spin it around. You'll more scoop it up. A big look up the inside from David Bush, and has he got that position made? They're still side by side. Chris Tapio on the outside, Bush on the inside. Still a bit of traffic to negotiate up the road, trading places. Both cars a bit of door-to-door contact. David Bush does get through, however, and now Stein van Nijlen trying to get in on the mix as well. Maybe 2 for the price of 1 there, but you can see David Bush is now back into 6th place and only pushing forward. 12 places gained from himself. Biggest mover in the field, however, is Russell Barnes. Up towards the front though, look how close the pair of these drivers are. Ted Bradbury, EJ Nixon, EJ in the McLaren, Ted Bradbury in the Audi. And that damage really is not helping. It looked like a fairly easy pass there for EJ. Just jumped out of the slipstream and managed to make that position up into 3rd place, up onto the podium, provisionally of course, still with just under 12 minutes of the race remaining. So it's now Ted Bradbury from the lead into 3rd, and right the way down into 4th place now. He's not going to take it lying down though. He's really hot on the heels. There's a car facing backwards. Is that Nicholas Matthews? Let's have a quick look. I do think it is for Lunatic Racing. Let's have a quick look to see what happened. Does he touch the grass on the outside? He uses a lot more than what he like hard into the tyre barrier, so of course minimises any sort of damage. Goes off the road, taps the wall, and then I think he's just waiting for the approaching cars to get past, safely rejoin, and back going once again. And that's something I've got to say a lot of these drivers do incredibly well. While they may be quite angry with themselves, I'll come back to my points a little later on, because look at this now. Ted Bradbury back up the inside of EJ Nixon, back into the podium places. Just over 10 minutes of the race remaining, and he couldn't have done that at a better point. Of course, though, the complexion of the race can still completely change. EJ Nixon still within touching distance, of course. But back to what I was saying, that's something I do find in this league is done incredibly well. While you may be furious with yourself, you've made a mistake and you've ended up off the road, whether it was your fault or another driver's, but a lot of the drivers do just sit there. They grab neutral or just hold the brakes, make sure they stay out of the way, let the danger pass, and then get back going again. So it's great sportsmanship driving from everyone involved. EJ Nixon now trying to do a carbon copy of the move he did on the lap prior, and I think he's done so successfully that McLaren has got the legs on the straight over the Audi, of course, with the damage from that previous incident. And it's EJ Nixon back into the podium places. Bradbury down into 4th place now, and the pair of them still battling tooth and nail for this final podium place. I'd expect nothing less from this championship. Around the outside from Bradbury, that's a very bold move. Hugs Nixon to the apex. That's a textbook move from Bradbury. What a move of the race, possibly move of the season so far. And look at that, that was great stuff. Carried the momentum on the way in. Does he wash wide? However, no, he doesn't. Gets the car hooked in towards the apex and gets back going once again. I'm going to have another look back at this. We're going to have to watch it from chopper cam as well, so you can see there Bradbury round the outside, then cuts in, hugs EJ to the apex, so he can't carry any more momentum than himself. Uses all the track on the exit, sorry. And Bradbury up back into the podium places. How long this lasts, I will never know, because they are still nose to tail just a little further back. This is for 7th place. This is Chris Tapio and David Bush still battling away, so the pair of them have swapped positions. So Chris Tapio losing that one, David Bush only going forward. We saw him get past Stein van Nijlen a few laps ago. back up to this battle though. Ted Bradbury back in the lead, and of course they were in this situation, what now, 2 laps in a row. So EJ Nixon should know what he's going to do, set the car up ready for this long straight, carry the superior momentum through turn 1. And does Ted Bradbury know what he wants to do this time? He does. He hugs the inside on the way through. Is there an overlap? Just about. They do make contact. Bradbury sideways up the hill, bounces off the wall, holds the brakes, make sure he stays out of the way. EJ Nixon carries on. Alex Crater goes screaming through, and Ted Bradbury does return to the pit lane. So let's have another look back just to see what happens. We'll get EJ Nixon and hopefully grab his onboard if we can. That's a little too early, I'm afraid. So we'll have a look at this overtake. So there is the overtake being made somewhat. Here is EJ Nixon, and is there contact? I'm afraid in theory there isn't, but with the unfortunate netcode, so to speak, does just fire it just fire the Audi clean off the road, and annoyingly for Bradbury, that has dropped him right the way down the order, and of course he has returned to the pit lane, so he's got a lengthy tow to withstand. EJ Nixon continues on, maybe without any damage on that car, of course. And you've got to say, after what was a bumpy start, everything did clean up, and you've got to think that these drivers could be on opposite ends of the world, opposite ends of the pole almost, and they're all racing on the same circuit, very similar cars, and lapping within hundreds and thousands of each other. And for just that to be available to us is amazing. It's a great feat of technology, and for little bits like that, I'm sure it can be excused, but I'm not 100% sure whether that will be looked into or not. I'm sure the drivers will have their differing opinions on that one. Chris Tapio here chasing down David Bush with Stijn van Nijlen just about within touching distance, bringing with him his fellow BMW driver of Stephen Brumfield and Centurion Racing Team in that number 45 machine. So those two getting closer and closer together. Onto the back straight we go once again. And it is somewhat going as expected for the pair of them. Both of them in very similar cars, so it's Lamborghini leading Lamborghini, then BMW leading BMW. It's going to be an incredibly close battle because, of course, there's very little to choose between the drivers. And with them all being pro drivers, all with very similar pieces of machinery underneath them, it's going to be quite the task to get past any of them. You can see David Bush here. If you look back, you can see Chris Tapio there with his lights ablaze, trying to make his intentions known. You can just about see in the background Van Nijlen fending off Brumfield, and look at this now, Tapio getting closer and closer and closer to the cars in front. To the car in front, pardon me, has a little look on the brakes, but just can't quite get that position made. I'm sure Overclockers are really pleased with this look back. He's getting lots of airtime here on the front of Chris Tapio's car. And through the penultimate corner we go once again. 5 minutes of the race remaining, 31 laps completed. 3.2 seconds clear is Mark Fletcher now. And Scott Rister 15 seconds clear of EJ Nixon. Of course, that would have been Ted Bradbury at one point, but Ted has dropped right the way down the order. I think he might have even retired from the race. He has indeed, so he's sat there in 32nd place. You can see in the background now Brumfield and Van Nijlen getting closer and closer together. So I can imagine this battle will only get closer as the race wears on. And now look at this, still side by side, and it's Brumfield making a bit of contact there, still door-to-door contact. That's Van Nijlen pitched sideways. Great driving from himself to keep that pointing in the same direction. And I think Brumfield might have been slightly overconfident on the way in. Let's see what happens. Well, can we get a chopper cam? We'll give it a go. So you can see Brumfield on the left-hand side of your screen. He is in front at this point, turns in Van Nijlen, maybe not quite expecting it, and once again, just that netcode curse catches the pair of them out. Van Nijlen goes rattling over the grass, and then does get back going once again without too much of an issue. And back going once again is Van Nylen, but without too much to do in regards of chasing down the cars in front. Still David Bush and Tapio battling away. And these two have been battling for quite some time now, so you'd have thought they would have got each other shaped up. I think just David Bush is driving one of the widest Lamborghinis on the circuit, and he's just fending off every little move that Tapio considers making. I've seen, who is that in the chat? Somebody is rather happy to see Alex Crater out and circulating. Currently sat in 4th place. 3 seconds up the road is his fellow McLaren of EJ Nixon. We saw the pair of them having a bit of a battle fairly early on, but I think the differing strategies between the drivers just separated them. There is EJ Nixon. Flames flailing from the rear end of that car. Nick McLaughlin now chasing down Alex Peck. Alex in the privateer 969 Ferrari. So once again, both drivers very similar machinery. I think Chris Tapio might have had a slight incident, you know, because he passed David Bush. I think we were about to see an overtake there. I am sorry about that, but here you go. Chris Tapio around the outside, has a little look, runs out of road, uses all the road, and then gets turned in on a little bit there and fired towards the grass, ushered off the road a little bit, and then who follows him through? That's David Bush managing to work his way past and remain in front. I believe we will go back live with this battle, and it's now Nick McLaughlin in front of Alex Peck, so we will have a little look back, and it is just out of turn 1. Nick McLaughlin grabs the inside, and he just holds that all the way up the hill, and of course he's carried that superior momentum, and he's on the inside, so he has got the defensive line available to him, and I'm sure he will just hold that right the way until the bus stop. 1 minute and 30 of the race remaining. There is Mark Fletcher, so he will have, I think, just one more lap of the race. We didn't see white flag last time through, but we will keep an eye on him just to see whether it will be the checkered flag this time by. And for the most part, it's been a fairly calm race from Fletcher. Of course, he did have the attentions of Rister and Bradbury early on, and then as soon as he went into the pit stop, I'm not sure what changed, but he just found another gear, got through the pit stop quicker than anybody else, got to the front once again, much like the Prelude race, and just stayed there. 4.1 seconds clear now of Scott Rister is himself. Here is Bush and Brumfield. Of course, you can see Chris Tapio trailing along at this point, but Brumfield, once again, he's found another gear, looking for that top 5 finish. 40 seconds of the race remaining, so there's a chance he's got another lap available to him. Up towards Mark Fletcher now, 30 seconds of the race remaining now. It will be pretty close as we head towards the line, but I think we will squeeze another lap out of this 1 hour race, and Mark Fletcher, he can't really afford to slow down, because 4 seconds, well, it seems like a fair bit, but if you try and slow down, force the checkered flag, it might not happen. And look now, through the final corner, he's going to cross the line with seconds to spare, 10 seconds left on the clock, so we do go on to the final lap of the race this time by. Mark Fletcher still in the lead, Scott Rister in second, EJ Nixon third, Alex Crater fourth, David Bush trying to hang on to 5th place, with Stephen Brumfield for Centurion Racing Team not too far away, 6/10 the gap. Chris Tapio there in 7th place for RPM Racing, trying to make up for that slight moment earlier on, of course aided by David Bush. So going on to the final lap of the race now, these guys, and I can only see them getting closer. Of course, they will try and push as hard as they can, so maybe a few mistakes might arise on this final lap. Let's hope not, but there's always a chance that that can happen. Up the hill we go, and it's still very similar gaps between the pair of them. Of course, Stijn van Nylen is well and truly out of this battle, so we won't see Stijn really putting the pressure on any of these drivers, but he has been there or thereabouts throughout the race. Stephen Brumfield, look how close he is now to the coattails of David Bush. We will have to look away in a few moments' time to catch Mark Fletcher crossing the line, and Mark has had an absolute flyer of a lap now, 6 seconds clear. So whether Scott Rister has maybe run it slightly tight on fuel, I don't know, but that gap has stretched out 2 seconds over what we saw last time through. But through the penultimate corner for the final time goes Mark Fletcher in the number 11 Altitude Esports machine, led for most of the race, put it on pole, and sadly didn't have the assistance of his teammate, but crosses the line, flashing the lights. Mark Fletcher wins round 1 of the Finding Speed GT3 League Season 2 here at Watkins Glen. Scott Rister finishes in second. EJ Nixon through the final couple of corners to take home 3rd place after a hard-fought battle with Brad Bree and Alex Crater. He does cross the line to round out the podium in the number 7 Empire Racing McLaren. Alex Crater here, great drive from himself, up 5 places for Luxsim 24 Esports to finish in 4th place. David Bush around the final corner does manage to fend off Stephen Brumfield, and Chris Tapio has managed to work his way in front. We'll have another look back at that, but David Bush rounds out your top 5. Chris Tapio gets back up into P6 for RPM Racing in the number 12. Brumfield there in 7th. Stijn van Nijlen finishes in 8th. David Gowrie 9th. And Pete Plasto rounds the final corner to finish off the top 10. And looking at the timing screens, we don't have many drivers still battling away for positions as they cross the line. Russell Barnes crosses the line in 11th place to gain 29 places from the last row on the grid, the last position on the grid. Here is Nick McLaughlin for Virtual Racing Compound. Rounds the final corner in the number 62. So the Canadian, a good drive from himself. Lost positions once again, however, he kept it controlled, kept it smooth, and finishes in 16th place. Alex Peck there in 17th, Warburton 18th, and Richard Jones through the final corner in 19th. Scott Kimbrough just going through the final sector of the circuit. But for what was a very, very exciting race, we had lots of battles up and down the order. We had a few incidents, of course, the big one on lap 1. Everybody is pretty much a bottleneck through turns 2, 3 and 4, and sadly it did strike once again here at Watkins Glen, and it did throw a few drivers completely off strategy, which did make for some rather interesting races throughout the 1 hour we had here this evening. Do we still have drivers out and circulating? We do, but I do think everybody has taken the flag, and we do have the results available to you. So up on the screen is the results from round 1 here at Watkins Glen. Mark Fletcher takes home another win in the series. Of course, the first one didn't count for points, the Prelude race at Laguna Seca, but tonight it does. 6.4 seconds clear in the number 11 machine. Scott Rister there in second for Empire Racing, and EJ Nixon rounds out your podium also for Empire Racing, 20 seconds off the lead. So Altitude and Empire Racing, quite a good night for themselves. Alex Crater there in 4th, David Bush 5th, Chris Tapio 6th, Stephen Brumfield 7th, Stijn van Nijlen 8th, David Gowrie 9th, and Pete Plasto rounds out your top 10. And it's Russell Barnes into 11th, Tom Dadswell 12th, Juan Manuel Calleja in 13th, Patrick Gannon 14th, Jim McIntosh in 15th, Nick McLaughlin 16th, Alex Peck 17th, Benjamin Warburton in 18th. We'll go down another few rows, and we have Richard Jones, Scott Kimbrough, Simon Chester, Graham Bardsley, Stephen Mello, Timothy Bright, Nicholas Matthews, Bill Pychek, Andreas Helgrud, and Graham Brown. And then we have Brett Crouch, Kansas Gentry, Harris Papadopoulos, Colin McKenzie, Ted Bradbury, sadly right the way down in 33rd place, of course himself retiring after that incident. Then with Todd Bosworth, Alex Wright, Igor Bembic, John Dinkle, and Dan Ocaranza in 38th. Just a couple more of Drew Becker and Dominic Linden. And that rounds out your results for the for round 1 of the Finding Speed GT3 League Season 2. And what a season opener it was. I'm sure we will have a few drivers to drag in to the interview, in for an interview. Let's see whether we can get EJ Nixon in. We can, so we'll go from bottom to top of the podium. EJ Nixon, welcome to the commentary box. That was a fairly hard-fought race. You battled with anybody that got anywhere near you, and of course an unfortunate incident with Bradbury, I believe. However, you brought home P3 and you joined your teammate Rister on the podium. So all round, it's been a fairly good night for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just reviewing the the incident through the S's with Ted, and there's netcode. I didn't touch him. You can clearly see it on my screen, but I feel bad that it happened to him. But yeah, it was a fun race. That's one of the things that kind of happens in iRacing. Nothing you can do about it. But yeah, good times.
Yeah, I've got to say it was great to watch you carving through the field, and of course you've picked the McLaren. That's been around on iRacing for quite some time now, but you've shown, and just because it's quite an old car, it doesn't have any lack of performance. And Alex Crater, your fellow McLaren driver, you had a bit of a battle with him as well. He finished in
Oh
fourth,
man,
so
yeah,
talk us through the choice, because the McLaren seems to be pretty hot on the topic here in the GT3 class.
yeah, definitely. About a month ago, I started. I was struggling with the Audi. I had a lot of betrayals from that Audi with the rear end snapping out on me, so I gave the McLaren a chance, and I've been driving it ever since. Man, it's been great. And yeah, the battle with Alex. I mean, that was like the whole first half of the race. We were going back and forth. I was trying to save some fuel, and he said he entered past the pit box just a bit, so he had to back up, and that was enough for me to get away. So
yeah, of course, it was a great little battle to watch. In 2 weeks' time, we go to Sebring on the 17th of April. Quite a bumpy circuit, quite a unique circuit as well, because it is incredibly flat, but a lot of challenging corners, heavy braking zones, fast corners, slow corners, and everything in between. What are your expectations for that one?
I struggle. I struggle in Sebring in Sunset in turn one, so I've got to get a lot of practice in there. And my approach is just going to try to survive, and get up in the top 10 in points, and try to keep it going.
Well, I will look forward to seeing that, and of course, once again, well done on the podium finish tonight. Before we let you go, anybody you'd like to thank or shout out while you're live on the Finding Speed YouTube channel?
Oh yeah, just the my Empire teammates. They're awesome. Scott Rister and Scott Kimbrough. They've kind of helped me come up to speed. I learned a lot from those guys, so I truly appreciate them.
Great stuff. Thank you very much for joining us in the commentary box. Once again, well done, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time at Sebring.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was EJ Nixon there, third place finisher, and let's hope we do have Scott Rister available for an interview. We do indeed. So Scott Rister, welcome to the commentary box. P2 for yourself and Empire Racing, of course, joined on the podium by your teammate EJ. That was quite a night for you. You spent a lot of the time in the podium places. I don't even think you dropped out of that, but you never really seemed to find your way to the front. You saw, of course, Mark Fletcher at the front, Bradbury at the front, and Scott Kimbrough. Who else was it that actually? Sorry, not Scott Kimbrough. Who else was it that got up to the front? One of the altitude cars, put it that way. But quite a hectic start to the race. But you were just there or thereabouts throughout the entire race. Talk us through what you thought.
Well, I followed Mark for the first part of the race, and I saw Ted gaining on me, and he was much faster. So I just told him to go ahead and go, and then I stuck behind those two. They battled a little bit, and I was just fuel saving at that point.
Yeah, well, it
was just us three, I believe, up front. Mark, Ted, myself.
Yeah, absolutely. It was all the same names up at the front, and you, of course, you mentioned saving fuel and things like that. So strategy, of course, there's the mandatory pit stop in this league. You cannot get to the end of the race on fuel. How important and how integral do you think that is to the complexion of the race? Having to manage your fuel, manage your tyres, of course, because it's quicker to not take tyres. But on some corners or some circuits, it can be quite a high tyre consuming circuit. How important is it to manage the car throughout the race, and then towards the end have that little bit extra in the tank?
Yeah, I felt the tires going away at the end of the race, but I didn't have quite the pace that Mark and Ted had, so I could hang with them, but I knew I couldn't battle with them. So their pace was stronger, so I just fuel saved at that point, try to save my tires a little bit. And at the end, it kind of worked out. Ted had a longer pit stop, I believe, and then I got behind Mark for a little bit until he broke my draft, and he was gone. He was much faster than me. So
yeah, it looked like that was the case, but of course you still came home with P2 and a great haul of points in round one of the season. So it's and really
with 0x on that race.
Oh, brilliant! That's really gonna be something to shout about. And yeah, you sat there in P2, you got a good haul of points for yourself and Empire Racing, of course, with your teammate on the podium. It's going to stand you in good stead.
Yeah.
And I asked the same question to EJ. 2 weeks time, we go to Sebring. What are you thinking about? What are your expectations, shall we say, for that round?
Actually, I'll be out for Sebring. I'm going to Mexico on vacation, so that's one race that I'm going to miss.
Well, you do get a drop round, so of course, putting it to good use. And yeah, let's be honest, Sebring, quite a bumpy circuit, quite a challenging circuit. And if you're going to sit one
Not
out,
my favorite anyway. So
yeah.
if I was to pick one to not race, it'd be that one.
Yeah, well, it's lined up perfectly. And you're going to Mexico, so of course, enjoy your vacation. And we hope to see you at Daytona on the 1st of May. But before we let you go, anybody you'd like to thank or shout out while you're live?
Well, I'd like to thank my teammates. We've all worked together practicing for this series. So Scott Kimbrough and EJ Nixon, we have a great team. We're all pretty consistent, and it's great to work with those guys. And of course, Russell for putting on the series. It's excellent. The qualifying was so close. I think it was within 1 second for top so many guys. It's pretty tough field. So.
Well, I've got to say, I've got to say you gave us quite the spectacle to watch this evening, and yeah, we won't see you out in 2 weeks' time, but in about a month's time at Daytona, we'll see you there. Enjoy your vacation between now and then, and once again, well done for your result tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Scott Rister there, 2nd place finisher. We're going to bring Mark Fletcher into the commentary box. Mark Fletcher, Prelude race winner. Round 1 winner. Is there anything you haven't done? Of course, incredibly well driven tonight. The pit stop set you apart from everybody. You got to the front and just disappeared. You lost Tom fairly early on in the race, and of course, not having that teammate to back you up, was that something playing on your mind? Because it's always helpful to have a rear gunner, but when you sat there with an Empire Racing machine, and of course you had Ted Bradbury following you for a little while as well, must have been fairly tense not having a teammate to help you around.
Yeah, we were laughing actually, because I was like, right, Tom, qualify 3rd, and then I'll tell you where I'm going. And then he qualified 2nd. I was like, mate, I'm not going to tell you now. I was like, if you beat me into turn 1, it's game over. And I said, no, honestly, I'm going midway through the last corner. Yeah, fine. Went midway through the last corner. He went, oh, right, you weren't joking, were you? I was like, no, I was being serious. But yeah, Scott and Ted, man, those guys are fast. I could see Scott and they were sort of just creeping up behind me, keeping the gap at about a second. And I think, well, Scott said he was like, I was just saving fuel. And then he released Ted into me, and then he closed the gap. And then it was just, he went for a move, so I thought I'd let him have it and work out where his car is faster than mine. And I could just see that his car was built to get out of the corners, and mine was just rapid in a straight line. But yeah, good pit strategy from the spotter, and yeah, thankfully the first race win, which is nice.
Yeah, a good night all round. You just, like you say, you put it on pole, and while you spent a bit of time battling away, at the end of it, you came out on top and just extended that lead margin. I think 6.4 seconds clear or something like that at the line. So you really started to extend that lead margin. And of course, we mentioned pit stops and you coming out on top of that. Ted Bradbury, we're hearing he might have slightly overfueled, had a bit of an issue in the pit stop. Not to say it gave you the win, but how do you think that changed the complexion of the race with, of course, the mandatory pit stop? How important do you think that is to the races?
Yeah, I love pit stop racing. It's another part of the sort of sim you have to practice. You could quite easily lose 2 seconds on the pit stop, even as much as riding the clutch on the way out of the pitch. If you wheel spin it, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, the idea when Ted got through was to try and save a bit of fuel. And then I was hoping to overtake him before the pit stop. So I hate following people into the pits. But yeah, like you said, I think he overfueled. Or whether he had to drive through Scott. I don't know where he started, whether it freaked him out a bit and he overshot, I don't know. But yeah, it was going to be interesting if he was still in front, put it that way. Because, yeah, he was driving really well, to be fair to him.
Yeah, absolutely. It was quite an interesting race, definitely. In 2 weeks' time, we go to Sebring, a month's time, Daytona, then Belle Isle and Road America. Which one of those 4 stand out to you for once that you think, yeah, that is, for me, that is the circuit that I want to do well on? Of course, Sebring, it's a bumpy, quite a tricky circuit. Daytona, it's banked. Of course, we've got the special event there. Same with Sebring. Belle Isle, very unique. It's just a street circuit, incredibly bumpy. And Road America, very wide open, long straights. So very different circuits. Which one of those for you are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I was hoping never to go back to Sebring until 2022. But yeah, my favourite track out of the whole calendar is Belle Isle. I love the place because it's a driver's track. It's the type of place where the amount of practice you put in kind of shows your actual pace there.
Absolutely.
It's not a place you can just turn up to and hope to get round. But yeah, hopefully we make it to race 4.
I'm sure you will. Going off tonight's performance, you'll be there before anybody else. But I've got to say, yeah, quite an interesting one. Belial, I think it's quite a Marmite circuit, but to say you're definitely looking forward to that one. Let's see what you can bring to the table there on the 15th of May. But once again, well done on your win tonight, and a good haul of points for yourself and Altitude Esports. Before we let you go, anybody you'd like to thank or shout out while you're in the commentary box?
Well, yeah, thank you to you and Chaz for doing the broadcast. I look forward to watching back this one. I know he's sunning himself in France at the minute, the lucky devil. But yeah, just our 2 team sponsors, SimRacing Studio, who do our win simulators, and the main sponsor, Sim Stickers.
Great stuff. So once again, well done for tonight, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time at Sebring.
Cheers, Jack. Speak to you soon.
Speak to you later. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Mark Fletcher there, and there's only one more person we can bring in. Russell Barnes, welcome to the commentary box. You've gone and done it again. 29 places gained from 40th to 11th, and with a bit of an incident on round 1. How do you do it?
Oh, well, I think I got semi lucky on this one. I mean, that carnage right at the start, just at the end of the S's, kind of wiped out a third of the field there straight away. I picked up some damage getting through there, and I was losing probably just under a second a lap. So I elected to pit as early as I possibly could. I was thinking, can I pit yet? Can I pit yet? And I went in, chucked in all the fuel I could, came out, and I still needed another 2 or 3 litres. So I had to fuel save like a demon for about a third of the race, and then just floored it as best I could. But I just couldn't catch. I think it was Peter for 10th. I just couldn't catch him at the end, so good driving by him there. But yeah, it was epic. What a great race.
Yeah, absolutely. A very similar performance to Laguna Seca, just charging your way through the field. And of course, that's going to be quite the challenge, because now with the Pro and the AM classes, you can almost pick the differences between the drivers you're going to be approaching, but you're still out there with the surprises of some drivers finding another gear, strategy playing a part as well. So it must have been definitely quite a busy job. What part of Watkins Glen do you think was the changing point in the race? I know turns 2, 3 and 4, a bit of a bottleneck. Everybody was going for the same piece of tarmac. That made quite the issue. But throughout the race, of course, you've got bits of the circuit you love, bits of the circuit you hate. Which part for you did you think, yeah, that's, if I'm going to make a move, I'm going to go there. If I'm going to save fuel, I can lift off here. Which part would you say was most integral to your race?
Yeah, I mean, definitely into turn 1 is a great opportunity for fuel saving and overtaking. The bus stop's also epic. If you can nail the bus stop, and it helped me out quite a few times actually, you can make up 2 or 3 tenths, you know, if you're really on it. And I think that's where I did a lot of my catching up, was like turn 1 and the bus stop. Those are the big ones for me.
Well, I think we may end up may have caught you a couple of times heading through there, and of course the strategy definitely worked out for you. 2 weeks time we go to Sebring, 17th of April. Of course, unique circuit, quite bumpy, very flat, and some very unique corners. And of course, with the Sebring 12-hour only a couple of weeks behind us now, there's going to be lots of drivers with prior experience. So what's your outlook on that one?
Yeah, no, I mean, I love the track. I think, like you say, we've had the 12-hour. I think there's probably a few drivers that are kind of ruining Sebring coming up on the schedule next week. But yeah, we're going to have some great racing there. Such amazing close racing. And like you say, everyone's had loads of practice. So I think it's going to be a fantastic round.
Well, we'll definitely look forward to it. But as per the usual script, anybody you'd like to thank, shout out, final comments, anything like that?
Yeah, well, thanks, man, for doing the commentary. Awesome job, as always. Thanks to all the drivers and everyone watching. It just wouldn't be, it wouldn't be fun without everyone taking part and do it in the spirit that it's intended. There was loads of great clean racing tonight, and that's what I do it for, just to have some great clean racing with some cool guys. And yeah, it's awesome. So thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you very much for the kind words. And yeah, I can definitely echo your sentiments to the drivers here this evening. But 2 weeks time, on the 17th of April, we'll see you at Sebring.
See you there, man. Cheers.
Bye bye. That was Russell Barnes there, Mr. Finding Speed himself. puts in a hell of a lot of work to get this series to where it is. Of course, helped by the massive growing community that he's got. So massive thank you to everybody that watches and is active on social media and YouTube and in the Discord. Of course, all the information can be found below for all the social media. The sponsors, of course, Demon Tweeks, Overclockers, and Fanatec. Make sure you go over to findingspeed.com as well to find all those links if you fancy spending a little bit of money. And also all of the previous content, track guides, setups, everything you need to get going here on iRacing. Make sure you head over to findingspeed.com to find that. I've been Jack Werrell. This has been round 1 of the Finding Speed GT3 League Season 2 here at Watkins Glen. It was a great race from everyone involved, but on the 17th of April we will be back here, hopefully same time, definitely the same place for round 2 at Sebring. Thank you very much for watching along. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye bye.